Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Courtside with Beilinson Tennis, part of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. Here with me as always, co-host and Hall of Famer Steve Flink. We're wrapping up the year. We're getting a little bit closer, Steve. Um, we're gonna timestamp this pod. It's Monday night in the States, so the Paris Masters 1000 final 1000 of the year is complete. The WTA Finals is in progress. There's been a couple days that have been completed. We'll talk a little bit about that. Before we get started, just want to remind the listeners, had Mary Jo Fernandez on last week. She was great, so pleasant to speak with. Had a really fun episode. So go check that out. You can get the audio only version on all major podcast platforms, and again, the video version is up on YouTube. Fun conversation, Steve, and you thought the same thing with Mary Jo, right? She was great.
Oh, absolutely. No. And I heard from some friends who really enjoyed it and appreciated the clarity of her mind. You know, she remembers her matches very, very well. Not all players do. She remembers the good and the bad too. That also is unusual because many players have selective memories, understandably, because some of the defeats are too painful to even want to think about. She was terrific.
Agreed. So go check that episode out. We had a ton of fun again with Mary Jo. All right. Paris Masters. And to me, the people who have listened to our podcast for several years now, the fall season is a little bit weird with me. I don't necessarily think a Masters 1000 should be after the US Open. I tend to think we get some weird results when you do tournaments like this after the US Open, just because people are either, conked out, just exhausted, or people are still trying to end their year on a good note. I think there's just a lot of different things in play where you don't necessarily get leading up to the final slam, but it's not going to change anytime soon. So here we have the Paris Masters. Tremendous performance by Ugo Humbert, losing in the finals to Sasha Zverev. I know we're going to talk a little bit about his match with Carlos. I watched quite a bit of that match. The shot making by both those guys was pretty incredible. I'll let you kind of run with your thoughts on the event, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, look, I like that event. They're going to be moving the venue, and we'll see how the players like that not being in the heart of Paris anymore. I think that's unfortunate, but yeah, you're right that sometimes you can get odd results. This one, not particularly though, because Zverev has been so consistent all year, knocking on the door for his second title. He finally got it, and he's awfully good indoors. And you put him on a fast court indoors, he's going to be very tough in Turin as well. So there was a certain logic to him pulling off the win. And of course, the important thing about his win is it puts him ahead of Carlos number two. He'll be the number two, which means we could get Carlos and Sinner in the same group. But I thought it was a good week. I thought you alluded to what was definitely the best match of the week because Humbert really feeding off the emotions of the crowd. Somehow, I mean, it was a start for Carlos that he'd like to forget, a 6-1 first set. But then Carlos got his teeth into the match. He got a break in the second, won that one. And they're on serve through the third all the way up to 5-all. And Humbert played just a spectacular game. Talk about going for your shots. We know that he does that, David. We know that he's a shot maker, but there are times, including the final against Sasha, where he can miss quite a bit too, where he can beat himself to a degree because the margin for error is so slim. But against Carlos, he was not missing much. And I don't know if you noticed it, David, the expression on Carlos's face after a couple of those winners from Humbert, he almost seemed to be saying, wow, that was a great shot. I didn't. All power to you. I didn't think you could make that one. He wasn't begrudging. He was actually impressed. And I thought that was a nice moment. And also the other lesson to me, David, about that match, if you're going to beat Carlos, you've got to be very daring unless your name is Novak Djokovic. And I don't mean that Novak is not daring, but I mean you got to virtually blast him off the court, or if he gets in any kind of rhythm, you're probably going to lose, unless it's Sinner, unless it's Djokovic. But
And
anybody
that's
else,
why 3 out of 5 is much more of a challenge against these guys. Because, I mean, can you keep that level up 3 out of 5? That's a challenge.
so true. Because when Humbert played Carlos at Wimbledon, I thought it was going 5. And late in the fourth, he had a love 40. It would have given him a break to win the set and get it into a fifth. And Carlos fended him off and won it in 4. but that's a perfect example. Carlos is he navigates best of five so well, which is why he's won now. You know, his four majors. I mean, the guy, two Wimbledons in a row. He's got a French in the U.S., and the reason is he is a great best of five set player. It's a lot harder to beat him in best of five, not just because of stamina, but because of sort of strategic resilience and
And the
regrouping. And
level of play the opponent has to keep up for those
yeah,
to
got to
rebound
keep
from.
that. And this was hard enough for Humbert to do that and win two sets. If this had been a best of five, maybe Carlos wins 6-3 in the fifth. We'll never know. But never, regardless, it was a great performance. And the nice part is he went on to the final. He had a nice semifinal win over Hachinov. And he was a little spent by the time he played Sasha, and he went down 2-2. And Sasha knew that if he didn't dismiss this Frenchman quickly and efficiently, that crowd was going to get animated, and that was going to be trouble for Zverev because, as we all know, I think his biggest weakness is not anything to do with his game, although he gets too defensive, but it's his temper. He can be a little fragile in this and get tight. And sometimes like against Holger Rune, David, and played Holger Rune in the semi, and Holger had a good week, and Sasha's breeze for the match at 5-4 in the second hasn't been broken, and suddenly a double fall at 15 love. He gets broken. He did manage to pull himself together and win the tiebreak, but he has those moments. He knew he couldn't afford those moments against Humbert in the final. So all credit to Zverev for a terrific week.
Let me ask you about Humbert a little bit because obviously in the Alcaraz match there was a lot of emotion from both players, and Humbert's going to feed off the crowd. And Carlos had plenty of his fans there too. You know,
Yeah,
Hachinov had some comments about him in the semis, some of the emotions and some of the things that Humbert was doing. Do you take any offense to the way Humbert was acting? Was it a little bit over the top at times, or does he need to show a little bit more respect? I know it's his home crowd, and he's using that to his advantage. I'm not saying you shouldn't
yeah.
use that. You absolutely should use that to your advantage. But did he go over the top a little bit in that semifinal match?
I don't know that he did. I'm not sure I agree with that. He goes up to the border. He's right on the border line. I'll agree with that, but I don't think so. And it's more self-celebration, spurring himself on. I didn't feel like it was gamesmanship in the sense of trying to get in his opponent's face. And Hachinov has every option in that case. Just don't even look at him. You know, look at the crowd. Find a different spot. Don't be drawn in by that. And I definitely didn't feel that Humbert that he was trying to distract Hachinov. That's my view. Others might disagree.
Got it. No, thanks for sharing that. One other player, he didn't. He. It's not like he made a deep run in this tournament, but I find myself starting to follow when I look at these draws. I look at where this certain individual is and see what he does, and I'm just starting to follow him every tournament because he's been so dangerous. And that is Jack Draper, and he beat Taylor Fritz in his first match here. Loses to Demonar, but this is a guy that he made the U.S. Open semis. His ranking heading in to Paris was 15. He's someone, and I think we may touch on him in our year end segment, which we'll do later. But he's someone that I think if he stays healthy, he's going to have a very, very, very good 2025. And he's already had a great 2024. Look at his climb up the rankings.
Yeah, no, I mean, I believe you're absolutely on the right track. I'm also very optimistic about him. Left-hander, great serve, really tricky serve to deal with. Has the great wide serve in the ad court, mixes it up well in the deuce court. His ground game has improved immensely. Good temperament. Maybe he needs a little work on the physical side. He could still get a bit stronger. We saw that at the Open, but no, I'd be surprised if we didn't see him as, say, a top 8 seed by Wimbledon. I don't even think that's a stretch. I think he can do that. It's going to depend largely on early in the season. He needs a good Australia, good Indian Wells, Miami, that portion, because I don't know if he'll do quite. Although he's good on hard, but I think he's that good, and I was really impressed watching him so closely in that Sinner semifinal at the Open, and he's destined for big things. I think Great Britain is going to be very happy with where he's headed.
Yeah, I agree with all the sentiments that you just said about Jack Draper. All right, should we head on? I know the men have their year-end championships coming up in a week, and we'll do a recap on that at the appropriate time. But the WTA Finals that has started. We've had some interesting matches. Let's see who we want to start with. Oh, I'll start with this. And I know she lost her first two matches, but it was good to see Elena Rybakina back on court. Obviously, the results aren't what she wants, but she hasn't played that much. So, you're playing the top women of the end of the year. I mean, you're not going to get any easy matches. So, not shocking the results. Good to see her back on court. And the more interesting thing, and I want to hear your thoughts on it, is she will be working with Goran Ivanisevic, starting in the offseason.
Yeah, well, let's start with the tournament. Yeah, she was a little bit behind the eight ball, you might say. I mean, I feel like when you've been out as much as she has and you're coming into the strongest field of the year in the sense that you're jumping right into a top eight field, you
You
could
can't
see
work
that.
yourself into a tournament. You can't work yourself into the tournament
Yeah,
when it's that.
yeah, and you can see that she had trouble, both matches, having trouble finding her range off the ground. They get into a 12 against both of those girls. She's 12, 14 stroke rallies, and she's the first one that's going to miss, particularly in the Paolini match. I sense that. And I just feel like it's understandable that she's not playing badly. She's just not match tough at this point. And she came up against two really tough players and wasn't quite up to the task. But the Goran, it's such a good match. I saw that Becker put something up online. You're a much more you go on these sites more than I do. But I noticed that Becker said something along the lines of, it's a good match because she's a great server. When she's right, she's arguably the best server in women's tennis. Goran can make her serve even better, in my view. He helped Novak with his serve. He helped Cilic when Cilic won the 2014 U.S. Open. Goran was a big factor in improving Cilic's serve. That's his specialty. Not that he can't coach well on all other aspects of the game, but I think he's going to help her. I think it's going to be it is going to be a good blend, and they should get along well. And I think he'll help her. But I guess it's the start of 2025, from my understanding. That's when they're really going to start in. And I think she made a wise choice.
Yeah, well, I'm eager to see how that player coach relationship develops. Again, let's get her happy on the court and let's have her being healthy and playing consistently. We know the great tennis that she can produce. All right, Sabalenka, she wins the purple group. Steve, to me, and I think to a lot of others, she's separated herself, even from Iga, I think, at this point level of playing. Not by a lot, but I think Sabalenka is the clear best player right now. And I want to see Sabalenka and Swiatek in the final of this, or even Goff Sabalenka. I think Sabalenka wins this whole thing. I think she's playing so well, so powerful. She likes the hard court. She's just been so impressive, Steve.
Yeah, it's a perfect setting, perfect surface for her. It's speedy conditions indoors. I agree with your assessment. Funny enough, we had this discussion. I think I'm trying to remember 3 or 4 podcasts ago,
Yes.
and she's since moved ahead of Iga to number one and is one match away from sealing it for the year. Yeah, I only caveat I throw in, David, is clay. Obviously, Iga is so great on
Right.
clay. She's outstanding on clay. Even then, Sabalenka, match points against her this year. I mean, she's still in there with her. But I feel like that's the only surface where Iga does have I mean, Iga has not proven on faster hard courts, and certainly not in the grass, that she's at the same level as Sabalenka. That she may yet do it. She's got a new coach now, Wim Fissette, which is a good choice. We talked about Goran, but Fissette. I mean, he's coached Azarenka, Clijsters, Osaka, Halep, and Kerber, 5 number ones. And that can't be any accident. And I just feel like good choice. She didn't want a Polish coach, Iga. She felt like she wanted to go elsewhere with it this time. I think he should really be able to help her. My hope is, I agree with where things stand right now. My hope is that Iga will close the gap on the other surfaces and we'll have a very tight race next year, because Sabalenka, by winning the 2 majors this year, Iga got the French, but Sabalenka got the Australian and US. And I feel like, okay, you know what? She's the clear number one this year, but I'd like to see a situation next year where maybe they divide the 4 majors and maybe they play 7 or 8 times over the course of the year and really sort of set themselves apart from the field, because that could well happen if Iga gets back in the best mental frame of mind that she needs to be. I mean, for instance, when Iga lost to Pegula at the U.S. Open, she looked about as miserable on a tennis court as any top player could. It was painful to watch her. She opened well here against Krejcikova. There was a nice win for her in her opening round robin match because she was down a set, 3-love, and 2 breaks in that second set. Came back to win it 7-5 and then won it going away in the third. And I feel like that was a nice lift for her to start the tournament. Now she's going to, I believe, play Coco, and as to see if Coco can get her second win over Iga, who's been so impossible for her to beat almost all the time. But this might be good timing for Coco. Coco played very well against Pegula. She only had a 1-4 record against Pegula, and she picked Jess apart. She got the early breaks in both sets. Pegula broke back in each set, but then Coco was so solid from the baseline and not double faulting. Her forehand was under control. And poor Jess was very frustrated. She couldn't find any holes in Coco's game that day. So that's a nice way for her to start the tournament. Meantime, Iga, as I say, she struggled against Krejcikova and won it in 3. So I have a feeling this one could be quite close. But looking at the long-term toward next year, I expect Iga to really start making some stride, finding herself again, if I can put it that way, on the other surfaces with Facette's help, so that she can feel more comfortable about her ability to be as dominant as possible on those courts the way she clearly is on clay.
And you referred to the overmatched when the head to head was Swiatek over Coco. It's 11-1. The
Yeah.
one win that Coco had was on hard court. It was outdoors, and it was during Coco's amazing run in 2023. It was nice. It is nice to see Coco play good ball. You talk about Iga looking miserable on the court at the U.S. Open. It was tough seeing Coco lose to Emma Navarro at the Open too, the way Coco did, the forehand and all the double faults. It's nice to see her play some clean matches, and hopefully that'll be more consistent as her years continue to go on. Again, she's still so young.
Yeah, look,
Um,
she's feeling a lot better about herself, David. You alluded
Good.
to the summer when she was miserable, and she'd lost to Emma at Wimbledon as well, and
Yes.
it was a tough summer. And then she decides to part ways with Brad Gilbert, which is probably something of a relief. She might have been thinking about it for a while. We don't know, but I feel like she just looks a lot more comfortable out there, and the forehand just looks a lot more solid again. And that was frustrating for Jess because she didn't seem to have anywhere to go in that match. She couldn't, when she probed, she wasn't rewarded for it. She got outplayed from the baseline, and Coco returned serve quite well too. So this will be interesting to see if she could stay at that level and against the Swiatek, who's not yet feeling at the peak of her powers either, given that she's taken a lot of time off since the Open. So it might be an opportunity for Coco.
Well, I will leave it for you for any final thoughts. I will say this. I am looking forward to traveling to New York this weekend and getting to have dinner with you. I know we're going to talk about some tennis. We're going to talk about your Yankees. I know they had a little rough start, but the rough finish, I should say. I was glad that wasn't you on the right field, foul pole trying to catch that ball. But you look good. Your spirits are up, and they made the World Series. And I know that was a little hard for you, but you're doing okay.
Oh no, I'm doing fine. Listen, when the Yankees are trying to get back to LA, they're down 3-1. They're up 5-0 in the fifth inning, and then they have a nightmarish inning.
Uh,
It was not easy to take. You kind of numb. But look, Dodgers are a great team. All credit to them, and I think they're a very classy team. So I guess if the Yankees had to lose, I can accept it. It's just we haven't had a World Series. Your father knows so well. We have not had a World Series title or championship since 2009. It's been a long wait. Frustrating for Yankee fans who are so accustomed to success across time. It's been a long wait.
And a lot of fans of any other team would love to have that drought that the Yankee fans have. So, I don't think you're going to get much sympathy from others. But yes, as a Yankee fan, that is a drought. But they'll be back at it right away. Steve, thanks for your time, and again, I'm looking forward to having dinner with you next weekend.
Yeah, looking forward to it, David. Thank you very much.